The soft glow of candlelight danced across the white tablecloth as I reached for my wine glass. 15 years of marriage celebrated in the same restaurant where James had proposed. His attention was fixed on his phone beneath the table, thumbs moving rapidly. I should have been annoyed our anniversary dinner interrupted by work again, but instead, I smiled. After a decade and a half, I'd learned to pick my battles. "Everything okay?" I asked, taking a sip of my Cabernet. James nodded without looking up. "Just Richardson with a client emergency. 2 minutes." I studied my husband across the table. At 43, James still had the same strong jawline and confident posture that had caught my attention at that charity auction where we'd first met. A few silver streaks now threaded through his dark hair, but they only made him more distinguished. Successful attorney, caring father to our 13-year-old daughter, my partner through everything. The waiter approached with our appetizers, and James quickly set his phone down on the table between us. Screen up. A rookie mistake. When the notification came, the bright screen illuminated with a message preview that stopped my heart. From Olivia. "Can't wait for tomorrow. The usual hotel." "Still telling her you're in Chicago?" James lunged for the phone, but it was too late. Our eyes met across the flickering candle, and in that moment, I knew our marriage was built on lies. "Rebecca, I can explain," he started. But I already knew the truth, and in that crystallizing moment, something inside me hardened. The pain would come later. Right now, a cold, calculating clarity washed over me. "No need," I said calmly, placing my napkin beside my untouched scallops. "I think I understand perfectly." What James couldn't see was that beneath my composed exterior, I was already planning, not just an exit but a reckoning. I met James Harrington in my late 20s, when I was still Rebecca Collins, a promising financial analyst with dreams bigger than my apartment. The charity auction where we met benefited foster children, an issue close to my heart after spending my teenage years bouncing between foster homes following my parents' fatal car accident. James outbid everyone for a weekend sailing package, then asked if I'd join him. I was drawn to his confidence, his ambition that matched my own. 6 months later, he proposed at Marigold, the upscale restaurant that would become our place. I said yes without hesitation. We built what I thought was the perfect life, successful careers, our dream house in the suburbs, and our daughter, Zoe, who inherited her father's dark hair and my analytical mind. I scaled back my career to support James as he made partner at his law firm, telling myself it was a team decision. We were building something together. The morning after the text incident, I moved through our house like a ghost, mechanically preparing breakfast while James showered upstairs. When he entered the kitchen, his eyes were shadowed from a sleepless night. "Rebecca, we need to talk about last night," he said, his voice low so Zoe wouldn't hear from the living room where she was finishing homework. I maintained my composure, buttering toast with steady hands. "You're right, but not now. Not with Zoe here." "I've canceled my trip," James offered, as if this were some grand gesture. "The fake Chicago trip?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. "How considerate." He flinched. "It's not what you think tonight," I interrupted. "After Zoe's at her sleepover, we'll talk then." James nodded, relief flooding his features. He thought I was giving him a chance to explain, to work things out. In reality, I needed time. After dropping Zoe at her friend's house, I drove to my office instead of going home. As a senior financial advisor now at Meridian Wealth, I had worked with enough divorced clients to understand what happened when marriages dissolved. I had seen too many women blindsided, not just by infidelity, but by financial betrayal. My assistant looked surprised when I walked in on a Friday evening. "Alina, I need you to pull everything we have on hidden asset investigations," I said, "and book me an hour with Diane from legal on Monday morning." "Is everything okay?" she asked. I forced a smile. "Just helping a client prepare for a difficult conversation." That night, I sat across from James at our dining room table, the formal dining room we only used for special occasions or serious discussions. He had poured us both a glass of scotch, my drink of choice when making tough decisions. "It was a mistake," he began. "It didn't mean anything." "How long?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. James swallowed. "Rebecca, how long?" 8 months, he admitted, "but I was going to end it. I love you and Zoe more than anything." "Who is she?" His hesitation told me everything. "She's an associate at the firm. New hire last year." "Olivia," I said, the name bitter on my tongue. "The one from the charity gala. The one you insisted on mentoring." James stared into his glass. "Yes, and the Chicago trips, the late nights, the weekend conferences. Not all of them were lies," he said weakly. I took a measured sip of scotch, letting it burn down my throat. Here's what's going to happen. James, you're going to move into the guest room. We'll tell Zoe you're having back problems. You will not see Olivia again personally or professionally. You'll find her a different mentor. We'll go to counseling, and you'll have 6 months to convince me this marriage is worth saving. Relief washed over his face. He reached for my hand. Thank you. I promise I'll make this right. I withdrew my hand. Don't thank me yet, because while you're trying to save this marriage, I'll be watching every move you make. And if I find out you've lied to me again about anything, there won't be another conversation like this. What I didn't tell James was that I had already begun documenting everything. The text, the confession, the patterns of deception. I had already downloaded our phone records for the past year, highlighting calls to one particular number. I had already checked our credit card statements, finding hotel charges that coincided with his business trips. I wasn't just a wounded wife. I was a financial professional who understood paper trails. And while I had given James 6 months to prove himself, I was giving myself the same time frame for something else entirely. To build an airtight case and a foolproof plan. The following Monday, I sat across from Diane, our firm's family law expert. This is hypothetical. I began. A client situation. Diane's knowing look told me she didn't believe me, but she nodded professionally. What would you advise a woman who has discovered her husband's infidelity, but wants to be strategic about her next steps? She believes he may have hidden assets. Diane leaned forward. I'd tell her to become a detective. Bank statements, investment accounts, tax returns for the last 5 years. Look for unexplained withdrawals, transfers to unknown accounts. Check for new credit cards, safe deposit boxes, and document everything related to the infidelity. It may not matter legally in a no-fault state, but it provides leverage. I took detailed notes. And if this client believes her husband might have used company resources to facilitate the affair, then she should be very careful about how she proceeds. Diane said cautiously, corporate policy violations can add pressure, but accessing company records improperly could backfire. I nodded, already formulating my approach. Over the next 2 months, James and I attended counseling weekly. He was the model of a repentant husband, attentive, transparent, home every night. He handed over his phone without hesitation when I asked, showed me his calendar, called me from his office when meetings ran late. He took Zoe and me away for a weekend to the coast, where he presented me with a diamond bracelet and tearfully recommitted to our marriage. To anyone watching, it appeared we were healing. But each night, after James fell asleep, I slipped out of bed and continued my investigation. I discovered an account with nearly $300,000 that hadn't been disclosed in our financial planning sessions. I found emails between James and a realtor about investment properties purchased in his brother's name. I uncovered a pattern of cash withdrawals, $9,800 each time, just under the reporting threshold, in days that corresponded with his Chicago trips. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. And as I built my case, I also built my resolve. Meanwhile, I cultivated my relationship with Alina, James's executive assistant at the firm. We had always been friendly holiday parties, occasional lunches when I'd visit James at work. Now I made a point to deepen that connection, sending her flowers when her mother was ill, recommending her nephew for an internship at my firm. James is working so hard to make things right, I told her over coffee one afternoon, 3 months after discovering the affair. It means everything to have his team supporting our family through this rough patch. Alina squeezed my hand. He's a changed man, Rebecca. We've all noticed it. No late nights, no private meetings. He even asked to be removed from the Chicago client team. I smiled, even as I registered that this confirmed my suspicion that the firm's Chicago client had been part of his cover story. That means a lot to hear. By the way, is Olivia Webster still with the firm? James mentioned she was being reassigned, but he doesn't like to talk about her, for obvious reasons. Elena's expression darkened. She's still there, but in corporate now, not litigation. Different floor entirely. She hesitated, then added, though between us, I think something's still going on. She still disappears at the same time he has his client calls on Thursdays. I kept my expression neutral while my stomach clenched. Thursdays, between 2 and 4. Standing meeting in his calendar with BDC Holdings. But they haven't been a client for months. I thanked her for the coffee and her friendship. Then walked to my car, where I finally allowed myself to feel the rage building inside me. 6 sessions of marriage counseling. Countless tearful apologies. All while he was still seeing her. That night, I pulled up the GPS history on James's Cara feature he'd forgotten about when we'd purchased the vehicle. Every Thursday afternoon for the past month. The same location, the Grand Merit Hotel downtown. I had my proof. Now I needed my plan. The day I decided to confront James and Olivia was unseasonably warm for October. I dressed with precision a fitted charcoal dress that projected confidence, pearl earrings that had been my mother's. Professional, polished, intentional. Nothing about my appearance would suggest a woman falling apart at 1:30. I texted James, "Emergency with Zoe at school. They can't reach you." Meeting her now, it was a calculated risk. James was an unfaithful husband, but a devoted father. Within seconds, my phone rang. "What happened? Is she okay?" His voice was panicked. "She fell during gym class. Possible sprained ankle. The nurse is with her now." "I'll meet you there," he said immediately. "No need," I assured him. "Finish your important meeting. I've got this. Just wanted you to know." "I'm coming," he insisted. "Text me updates." I ended the call and started my car. I knew what would happen next. James would call Olivia, cancel their rendezvous, and rush to be the heroic father. By now, he would be calling the school to check on Zoe, only to learn there was no emergency. He would realize it was a trap, but too late. I arrived at the Grand Merit Hotel at 2:15. The concierge recognized me from charity events I'd attended there with James. "Mrs. Harrington, how lovely to see you. Is Mr. Harrington joining you today?" "Not today, Thomas," I said with a warm smile. "I'm actually surprising a friend for her birthday, Olivia Webster. I believe she's already checked in for a conference here." Thomas checked his system. "Yes, Ms. Webster is in room 718. "Perfect," I said. "Could you possibly give me a key? I've brought a birthday gift and would love to leave it in her room before she returns from her current session." Thomas hesitated. "I'm not supposed to, ... I leaned in confidentially. "Between us," James suggested it. "You know how he likes to coordinate these surprises for the firm's rising stars." I slid a $100 bill across the counter. "And I'd so appreciate your help." A moment later, I had a key card and was heading to the elevator. Room 718 was at the end of a long hallway, with a view of the city skyline. I let myself in quietly. The room was empty but showed signs of anticipated romance: a bottle of champagne in an ice bucket, 2 glasses, a man's tie draped over a chair. I settled into an armchair facing the door and waited. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Olivia entered alone, checking her phone with a frown. She was younger than I expected, early 30s. With long auburn hair and the confident posture of someone used to getting what she wanted. When she looked up and saw me, she froze. "Mrs. Harrington," she said after a moment, her voice steady, despite the shock in her eyes. "Please, call me Rebecca. After all, you've been sleeping with my husband for nearly a year. I think we're past formalities." She straightened, collecting herself with impressive speed. "This is inappropriate. You need to leave." "Actually, Olivia, I think you're the one who's been inappropriate. Sleeping with a married partner, using firm resources and time for your affair. I wonder if the managing partners know how you've been advancing your career." Her expression hardened. "You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I?" I removed a folder from my bag and placed it on the coffee table between us. Bank statements, hotel receipts, text messages, GPS locations. The firm has a morality clause, doesn't it? For both partners and associates. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across her face. "James wouldn't let you do this." "James doesn't know I'm here," I said calmly. "He thinks our daughter is injured. That's where he's rushing to right now, while you were waiting here with champagne." Her phone buzzed then. She glanced at it, then back at me. "He's been trying to end things," she offered, a note of desperation entering her voice. "For months now. Is that why you're still meeting every Thursday? Because he's trying to end things." She sank onto the edge of the bed. "What do you want?" I stood and smoothed my dress. "I want you to disappear from our lives. Transfer to a different firm, preferably in a different city. Break it off with James today and never contact him again." "Or what?" A flash of defiance. "Or I take this folder to the managing partners, to the Bar Association. I have friends in legal journalism who would find the story of an attorney using firm resources to conduct an affair quite interesting." I moved toward the door. "You have 48 hours to give notice at the firm." "I'll know if you don't." As I reached the door, she called after me, "He doesn't love you, you know. He stays for your daughter and the firm's image. He told me everything, how you gave up, how you're just going through the motions." I turned back to her with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Perhaps, but at least I'm not sleeping with a man who lies to his mistress about why he stays in his marriage. Think about it, Olivia, if he'll lie to his wife of 15 years, what makes you think he's honest with you? I closed the door on her stunned expression and walked to the elevator with steady steps. Only when I reached my car did I allow myself a moment to breathe, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Phase 1 complete. That evening, James came home late, his face haggard. "Zoe's fine," he said accusingly as he entered the kitchen where I was preparing dinner. "There was no emergency." "No," I agreed, continuing to chop vegetables. "There wasn't. You lied to me. You made me think our daughter was hurt." His voice rose with indignation. I set down the knife and turned to face him. "Ironic that you're upset about being lied to." Understanding dawned on his face. "What did you do?" "I had a lovely chat with Olivia at the Grand Merit. Room 718. You have expensive taste in champagne." The color drained from his face. "Rebecca, save it." I cut him off. 6 months. James, that's what I gave you. 6 months to prove you could be trusted, and you couldn't even manage that. He sank into a kitchen chair. "It's complicated. I've been trying to end it properly, to make sure it wouldn't affect either of our careers. By continuing to sleep with her." I asked incredulously. "That was your solution?" "I was handling it," he insisted. "What did you say to her?" I resumed chopping. "I told her to leave the firm and never contact you again. I was very persuasive. You had no right." He exploded, slamming his hand on the table. "You've jeopardized everything." "I've jeopardized everything," I repeated, voice rising to match his. "You've been sleeping with her throughout our entire counseling process. Every apology, all of it." "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "Zoe will hear." "Zoe's at band practice, but you'd know that if you actually paid attention to your family instead of your mistress." James ran a hand through his hair, visibly trying to calm himself. "What happens now?" I set down the knife again and wiped my hands on a towel. "Now I need to decide if this marriage is worth saving, and you need to decide if you're capable of being honest about everything." "What does that mean?" "It means I know about the secret account, James. The property investments in Daniel's name, the cash withdrawals." His expression shifted from confusion to shock, then to something darker, something I'd never seen before. "You've been spying on me." "I've been protecting myself," I corrected. "And Zoe." He stood abruptly. "I need some air." At the doorway, he paused. "This isn't just about the affair anymore, is it?" "No," I said quietly. "It's about who we've become." After he left, I poured myself a glass of wine and called my closest friend, Elise, who had been my confidant through this entire ordeal. "It's done," I told her. I confronted Olivia. "How did she take it?" Elise asked. "Better than James. He's furious that I took matters into my own hands." I took a sip of wine. "But he doesn't know about the final phase." "Rebecca," Elise's voice grew serious. "Are you sure about this? Once you start, there's no going back." "He's hidden money." Elise lied consistently for almost a year, continued the affair while pretending to save our marriage. "What would you do?" She sighed. "I'd probably do exactly what you're planning. Just ... Be careful." "I will," I promised. "After tomorrow, everything changes." The next morning, James and I moved through our usual Saturday routine in frosty silence. He made coffee. I prepared breakfast for Zoe. We took turns checking her homework and signing permission slips. To our daughter, nothing seemed amiss. We'd become experts at performing normalcy. When Zoe left for her weekend science program, James finally broke the silence. "We need to talk." "Yes," I agreed, "but not here." "Where then?" "The lake house," I said. "No distractions, no interruptions." James nodded slowly. The lake house had been our refuge over the years, a place we retreated to for important decisions and it seemed fitting it would be the setting for what came next. The drive took nearly 2 hours. Through autumn forests blazing with color, we rode in silence, the space between us filled with 15 years of shared history and 1 year of devastating betrayal. I thought about the life we'd built, the dreams we'd shared, the trust that had been shattered. The lake house was exactly as we'd left it after our summer. Vacation family photos on the mantle, Zoe's artwork on the refrigerator, the worn furniture that held memories of better days. James lit a fire while I made tea, the familiar ritual, a sharp contrast to the unfamiliar tension between us. We sat across from each other in the living room, steam rising from our mugs, the fire crackling beside us. "I've been thinking about what happens next," James began. "I'll agree to whatever you need: more counseling, complete transparency, even stepping back from some responsibilities at the firm to focus on us." "It's too late for that," I said quietly. His eyes narrowed. Because you've already decided to leave me. Because you've already left us, James. Financially as well as emotionally. He set his mug down carefully. What exactly are you suggesting? I reached for my bag and removed a second folder, thicker than the one I'd shown Olivia. 300,000 in a private account. Investment properties in Daniel's name but funded by you. Regular cash withdrawals just under the reporting limit. I laid out document after document. Tax fraud, potential money laundering, hidden assets during a marriage. James's face hardened. You don't understand what you're talking about. Then explain it to me, I challenged. Explain why my name isn't on these assets. Why you've been hiding money for years. He stood and paced to the window, looking out at the lake. It's complicated. So simplify it? He turned back to me, his expression guarded. Some of the firm's clients require alternative financial arrangements. It's all legal, just not something that would look good if examined too closely. So you're moving client money through our personal finances. I clarified, incredulous. That's your explanation. It's standard practice for certain clients. The partners all do it. And the mistress. Is that standard practice to... My voice remained calm despite the anger building inside me. James ran a hand through his hair. That was a mistake. I've already told her it's over. When... Last night, after I forced your hand. What difference does it make? He snapped. It's done. She's transferring to the Boston office. You got what you wanted. I stared at him, truly seeing him for the first time in years. This calculating defensive man was not the James the First had married, or perhaps he had always been this person, and I had chosen not to see it. Here's what's going to happen, I said, folding my hands in my lap. You're going to transfer half of that hidden account to me today? You're going to sign an agreement giving me 50% ownership in all those undisclosed properties. You'll increase Zoe's college fund by the exact amount you've spent on hotels and gifts for Olivia this past year. James's laugh was cold. Or what? You'll turn me in, destroy your own financial security, and drag our daughter through a public scandal. I don't think so. No, I said calmly. I'll go to the managing partners with proof that you've been using firm resources to conduct an affair with an associate. Something explicitly forbidden in the partnership agreement. I'll show them evidence that you've been moving money through personal accounts without proper documentation. I wonder if the ethics committee would be interested in reviewing those alternative financial arrangements you mentioned. The color drained from his face. You wouldn't. I've already drafted the letter, I said, removing it from my folder. It's quite detailed. You'd ruin everything we've built, he said, his voice rising. My career, our reputation, Zoe's stability. You did that, James. The moment you decided our marriage vows were optional. The moment you began hiding money that should have been part of our shared future. He sank back onto the couch, his composure finally cracking. What do you really want, Rebecca? I already told you. Half the hidden assets transferred to me immediately. Joint ownership of the properties. And an additional $150,000 in Zoe's college fund as restitution for your betrayal. And then what? We divorce quietly. I set down my tea. That depends on you. I'm not making any decisions about our marriage until I know the financial deception has been rectified. Trust has to be rebuilt in all areas, not just the emotional ones. This feels like blackmail, he said bitterly. This feels like consequences, I corrected, something you've been avoiding for quite some time. For a long moment, James stared into the fire, the flames casting shadows across his face. I could see him calculating, weighing options, looking for a way out. Finally, he looked back at me. I'll transfer the money today, he conceded, and start the paperwork for the properties. But I want something in return. You're not in a position to negotiate, I reminded him. Maybe not, but I'm offering a good faith gesture. He leaned forward. Complete honesty from this point forward. About everything. And in return, you commit to 6 more months before making any decision about our marriage. Real counseling. Not just going through the motions. A genuine attempt to rebuild. I considered his offer. Part of me wanted to refuse outright to take the financial security and walk away from the man who had betrayed me so thoroughly. But another part, perhaps the part that still remembered why I had fallen in love with him, hesitated. 3 conditions, I finally said. First, complete financial transparency from now on, joint accounts only, no separate finances. Second, you step back from any clients requiring alternative arrangements. Third, we tell Zoe the truth about your affair, not the details, but the fact that you violated our trust and are working to repair it. James paled at the third condition. She's 13. It would devastate her. She deserves honesty, I insisted, and you need to face the full impact of your choices. After a long moment, he nodded. All right, but we tell her together, with a family therapist present. Agreed. He extended his hand across the space between us. Do we have a deal? I looked at his hand, the same hand that had held mine through my father's funeral, that had cradled Zoe minutes after her birth, that had typed messages to another woman while wearing his wedding ring. We have a beginning, I said, taking his hand briefly. Whether it leads to reconciliation or an amicable ending remains to be seen. That evening, I watched as James transferred $150,000 to my personal account and another $150,000 to Zoe's college fund. I received confirmation emails from his attorney initiating the property ownership changes, small steps toward restitution, though the emotional debt remained unpaid. As we drove back to the city in the gathering darkness, James asked quietly, "Did you ever consider that I might have been protecting you, keeping you separate from anything that could cause problems if scrutinized? Is that what you told yourself?" I asked. "That hiding assets from your wife was for her protection." He gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Some of it, yes. The firm operates in gray areas sometimes. I didn't want you implicated if anything went wrong." "And the affair, was that for my protection too?" His silence was answer enough. "Here's what I've learned, James," I said, watching the headlights illuminate the road ahead. "Protection without consent is just another form of control. You didn't protect me. You underestimated me." We drove the rest of the way in silence, each contemplating the uncertain path ahead. 6 months later, I sat alone at Marigold, the restaurant where our story had begun, the same restaurant where, half a year earlier, a text message had shattered the illusion of my perfect marriage. I wasn't waiting for James tonight. This dinner was for me alone, symbolic reclaiming. The past 6 months had been a carefully orchestrated rebuilding. James had fulfilled his financial promises completely, joint ownership of all assets, full transparency in accounts. He had stepped back from the questionable clients, even at the cost of some income. We had told Zoe the truth with the help of a family therapist, a painful session that had left all three of us in tears but had also cleared the air of secrets. We had attended counseling twice weekly, peeling back layers of resentment, betrayal, and miscommunication. James had done everything asked of him and more. He had been patient when I couldn't bear his touch, understanding when I needed space, persistent in his efforts to rebuild trust by all objective measures. He had earned a second chance. And yet, as I sipped my wine and considered the empty chair across from me, I knew what my decision would be. My phone buzzed with a text from Elise. "Did you tell him yet?" "Tonight," I replied. After dinner, the waiter approached. "Mrs. Harrington, will you be dining alone this evening?" "Yes," I confirmed. "Just me tonight." As I ordered, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the restaurant's mirrored wall. I looked different, stronger, more assured. The woman who had sat in this same restaurant 6 months ago, watching her husband's phone illuminate with evidence of betrayal, had been blindsided. The woman reflected back at me now had her eyes wide open. After dinner, I drove home to find James waiting in the living room. He stood when I entered, his expression hopeful but uncertain. "How was dinner?" he asked, clarifying. I replied, setting down my purse. "We need to talk." His face fell slightly, but he nodded. "I've been expecting this. Today marks 6 months. We sat across from each other, an echo of our confrontation at the lake house, though with less hostility and more resignation. "I've made my decision," I began. "You've done everything?" I asked. "You've been transparent, committed to counseling, patient with the process. I believe you're genuinely remorseful about the affair." Hope flickered across his features. "But," he prompted, sensing the unspoken word. "But I don't want to be married to you anymore," I said simply. The silence that followed was heavy with 16 years of history. "May I ask why?" he finally said. "After everything we've rebuilt." I considered my answer carefully. "Because I've realized something important. James, the affair wasn't the beginning of our problems, it was the culmination. For years, we've been growing in different directions. You toward power and control, me toward authenticity and transparency. The financial deception wasn't just about money, it was about a fundamental difference in values." "I've changed," he insisted. "You've seen it. You've behaved differently," I corrected gently, "and perhaps that's the same thing, given enough time. But I've changed too. The woman who discovered that text message 6 months ago is gone, and the woman I've become wants something different from life." He leaned forward. "What about Zoe? We'll cope civilly, respectfully. She'll have 2 homes where she's loved completely. We'll attend her events together and celebrate her milestones as a family. But we won't model a marriage based on obligation rather than joy." "Is there someone else?" he asked suddenly. Is that what this is about? I shook my head. This isn't about finding someone new. It's about finding myself again. James stood and moved to the window, his back to me. I still love you, he said quietly. I believe you do. In your way, I acknowledged. And part of me will always love the man I married. But we're different people now. He turned back to face me. What happens next? I've already found an apartment downtown, closer to my office. I move in next week. We'll tell Zoe together tomorrow. I've drafted a fair separation agreement. You can have your lawyer review it. I hesitated, then added, I'm not looking to punish you, James, just to move forward. He nodded slowly. I understand. Not agree, but understand. Later that night, after James had retreated to the guest room where he'd been sleeping these past months, I sat on my bed and called Elise. It's done, I told her. I told him I'm leaving. How did he take it? She asked. Better than I expected. Sad, but resigned. I looked around at the bedroom we had shared for 15 years. It feels strange, like the end of a long book. Or the beginning of a new one, Elise suggested. Have you told Zoe yet? Tomorrow morning. That's the part I'm dreading most. She's stronger than you think, Elise reminded me, and remarkably perceptive for 13. After we hung up, I walked to Zoe's room and stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. The moonlight illuminated her peaceful face, so trusting and innocent. Tomorrow would bring tears and questions, but it would also bring honesty and, eventually, healing. I returned to my room and opened my laptop. The document I'd been working on for weeks was nearly complete, a business plan for my own financial advisory firm, specializing in helping women achieve financial independence. The experiences of the past year had revealed not just a personal betrayal, but a systemic vulnerability that too many women faced. I wanted to turn my pain into purpose. As I reviewed the final projections, my phone buzzed with a text. I expected Elise again, but instead saw Olivia's name on my screen. I hadn't heard from her since our confrontation at the hotel 6 months ago. I thought you should know, I never took the Boston position. I left the firm entirely, starting my own practice, focusing on women's legal advocacy. Ironic, I know. What happened changed me too. I stared at the message, unsure how to respond, or if I should respond at all. Finally, I typed. We all have the capacity to transform our darkest moments into something meaningful. Her reply came quickly. Are you staying with him? No. I answered truthfully, but not because of you. Because of me, for what it's worth. I'm sorry, she wrote back. I considered her words. Not forgiveness, exactly, but acknowledgement of a shared human experience. We make our choices. Then our choices make us. I set my phone down and turned back to my business plan. Outside my window, the city lights sparkled against the night sky. Somewhere in that landscape was my new apartment, my new beginning. The revenge I had initially planned to complete. Financial and professional destruction of the man who had betrayed me had evolved into something more profound. The reclamation of my own power, not power over James, but power within myself. The ability to walk away from a situation that no longer served me, even after the practical issues had been resolved. True strength, I had discovered, wasn't about destroying others who had hurt you. It was about rebuilding yourself into someone who couldn't be destroyed. 3 months later, I stood in the offices of Collins Financial Advisors, watching as the sign was installed on the door. My own firm, named for the woman I had been before I became Mrs. Harrington, and the woman I was becoming again. Zoe split her time between my downtown apartment and James's house in the suburbs. Adapting to our new reality with the resilience of youth, James and I had settled into a cordial co-parenting relationship. Our interactions focused on Zoe's well-being rather than our past grievances. Elise joined me at the window, champagne glasses in hand. 2 new beginnings, she toasted. And 2 unexpected endings, I added, clinking my glass against hers. Are you happy? She asked, studying my face. I considered the question. I'm at peace, I answered truthfully. Happiness is still a work in progress. That evening, as I walked home through the city streets, my phone rang. James's name appeared on the screen. Rebecca, he said when I answered, his voice carrying an unfamiliar note of humility. I wanted to say congratulations on the firm. Zoe told me about the opening. Thank you, I replied, surprised by his call. A brief silence followed, then he said, you were right, you know, about everything, the direction I was heading. The values I was compromising. Losing you and almost losing Zoe's respect forced me to take a hard look at myself. I hope that's been valuable, I said carefully. It has. I've made some changes at the firm. Ethical practice guidelines. Mentorship structures that prevent power imbalances. He paused. I've been seeing someone. A therapist, I mean. It's helping. I'm glad. James. For Zoe's sake, and for yours. And for your sake, he asked quietly. I stopped walking, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. For my sake, too. Your healing is not my responsibility anymore. But I don't wish you ill. Never did, actually, even when I thought I wanted revenge. That night at the lake house, he said suddenly, you could have taken everything. The letter to the partners, the evidence of the financial improprieties. You could have destroyed me professionally. Why didn't you? I considered his question. Because revenge would have kept me tethered to the pain. I needed to be free of it, all of it. After we hung up, I continued my walk home, feeling lighter with each step. The text message that had shattered my marriage had ultimately led me to rebuild my life, not in response to betrayal, but in alignment with my truest self. My revenge, in the end, was living well, not to spite James, but to honor the woman I had always been capable of becoming. As I entered my apartment and set my keys on the counter, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was not defined by being a betrayed wife or even a soon-to-be ex-wife. She was defined by her own choices, her own strength, her own journey forward. And that, I realized, was the most satisfying resolution of all.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.